Mixed martial arts fights are meant to be exciting, dynamic, and some of the most entertaining events in the world.
Oh, that's it!
But it doesn't always turn out like that.
But he's becoming boring.
This is a list of some of the most boring, awful, and uneventful fights in history. These are some of the worst fights in MMA. Michael Page versus Paul Daley. One of the most hyped fights in 2019 was Michael Page versus Paul Daley.
I'm telling you, Michael Page is getting knocked out.
Both fighters were known for their spectacular knockouts.
And it is all over!
Daley was sick of being held down and controlled by wrestlers, so he vowed to earn a KO against his opponent and make this one of the most exciting fights ever.
Whether the fight plays out that way and he'll stand and bang, I don't think so. But it will be a great fight for however long it lasts. Obviously, he's going to get knocked out, we know that, but...
Which ended up being a little white lie.
Page has him pinned along the fence.
Well, something of a big lie.
Two strikers come all the way from England, and we have a huge grappling match for almost 5 rounds.
Actually, it was a straight-up lie. No ifs, ands, or buts.
I'm telling you, Michael Page is getting knocked out.
When the bell rang, Daley suddenly changed his game plan. All the promise of an exciting fight went out the window.
Note to self, learn to fight.
Daley desperately spammed takedowns and seemed to want no part of Page's stand-up game. What was supposed to be the fight of the year ended up being worse than Bum Fights Volume 1, maybe even Bum Fights Volume 2. The sequels never live up to the original. Daley talked a lot of trash on how wrestlers always take him down and how they're scared to stand up and trade punches, and even booed his own fight after getting taken down in his fight against John Fitch.
Paul wears his heart on his sleeve.
But when the bell rang, Daley, one of the most exciting fighters in the division, did a total 180 and suddenly forgot how to fight, which wouldn't have been so bad. But his opponent, Michael Venom Page, also seemed to forget how to fight, and only 3 strikes were landed in the whole first round.
And about right now, somewhere in here, your referee should come in and start saying, hey, I need you to start fighting.
Daley, after constant trash talk on wrestlers being boring and scared to stand up and bang with him, did nothing but dive in for desperate takedowns to avoid Page's stand-up.
Maybe not the offensive fireworks display that we anticipated, but hey.
Daley lost the fight, but he won MMA's Most Hypocritical Fighter of the Year award with his performance against Page.
Yeah, you're gonna wrestle. You're gonna try and wrestle yourself out of getting beaten the but this is no wrestling match, mate.
Page, who had been training under Dana White in his boxercise classes, showed off his newfound talents by dancing all over the ring, preferring not to throw strikes.
Page up, doing what Michael Venom Page does.
With the nickname Venom, one would think of something fierce like a cobra or a black mamba. But in this fight, Michael Venom Page had about as much venom as a garden snake in this fight.
But if you don't throw any punches and you throw no kicks, I guarantee you're not going to win.
The worst part about this fight was that it was a 5-round fight. And that means 25 minutes of this.
Pinned along the fence.
This.
An uneventful opening 5 minutes here.
And this.
Venom trying to bring Page down. Now he's in the top position.
But if there was any silver lining to the fight at all, at least it gave smokers a chance to catch a smoke break or 2, or 3, or, well, maybe an entire pack before the fight was finally, and thankfully, over.
He was bragging about being a knockout artist, and he's doing more takedown he's ever done in his career.
Venom trying to bring Page down. Now he's in the top position.
The one and only MVP is here to stay, and I'm taking the belt.
A few moments later.
100%.
Oh, and there it is! What a shot by Lima! Mamma mia! Douglas Lima has just defeated Michael Venom Page!
Chael Sonnen versus Paulo Filho. Not only one of the worst fights in MMA, but also one of the strangest, was Chael Sonnen's rematch against Paulo Filho at WEC 36.
Who's he looking at? He is looking to the side. It's like talking to Jesus or something in the middle of the ring. I don't know what he is doing.
Filho, who admitted to not training for the fight, which is always a great idea, shockingly performed poorly during the bout by attempting nothing but half-hearted takedowns and flopping to his butt multiple times during the fight.
He is just not, he is so out of this right now. I don't know if it's gassed or he just has no desire.
Sonnen dominated the fight, mostly through a stand-up game. And when you're getting outstruck by a wrestler, you may want to rethink your training regime.
It seems like retribution is coming Paulo Filo's way in the form of Chael Sonnen's fists.
A majority of the fight took place with Filio laying on his back with Sonnen grabbing his ankles, kind of resembling sexual position diagrams like this.
Number 1.
Power driver.
And this.
Number 2. Missionary.
And this too.
Position number 3, the crab. This is a position that requires a little bit of leg strength. Start by standing upright, face each other. You can look right in their eyes and hold each other tight for a more intimate feeling.
Filio was the champ at the time, but since he missed weight, the title wasn't on the line.
Paulo Filo unable to make weight, so it goes from a 5-round fight to a 3-round fight, and the belt will not exchange hands.
The strangest part of the fight took place in the 3rd round, with Filio randomly looking around the ring.
Who's he looking at? He is looking to the side.
It's like talking to Jesus or something in the middle of the ring.
And that's it. Filio still does not know what is going on.
Filio admitted to having drug problems leading up to the fight, including using cocaine. And he wasn't even training with John Jones.
Hey, you're funny.
Filio admitted to using cocaine all the time, but claims he wasn't addicted to it, he just used it all the time is all. Even though Sonnen won the fight, he didn't win the title since Filio missed weight by 7 pounds. Shortly after, the middleweight division was dissolved. And even worse, Filio lost his dealer afterwards. But luckily ran into Jones after the fight and got the hookup. Kimbo Slice versus Houston Alexander. A regular on the Worst Fights in MMA series, Kimbo Slice makes another appearance, this time against a dynamic and explosive striker in Houston Alexander.
Down he goes!
Well, usually dynamic and explosive.
Well, but he's becoming boring.
This was Kimbo's first fight in the UFC, and his chance to finally prove all the doubters wrong about his questionable MMA skills.
They're going to go out into the middle of the octagon, and they're going to throw punches until somebody goes down. This is going to be a fight that Kimbo fans are going to want to see.
Or not.
Let's work, gentlemen, let's work. Good, gentlemen, let's do this.
Unfortunately, the fight didn't quite live up to the hype. Before this fight, Houston was known as one of the most explosive knockout artists in MMA, with several KOs to his name.
Oh, he got dropped! You want to talk about some power!
Even though he is usually exciting, even his corner urged him to stop stalling.
You can't stall anymore. You've got to let it go, all right?
But in this fight, Houston tried a different strategy to endlessly circle around his opponent.
Interesting seeing Houston circle like this. This is a first. Interesting, Houston Alexander using his footwork and circling. This is just getting weird now. This is like over a minute of just spinning around in a circle. I mean, he's just circling around him like a merry-go-round.
During his patented merry-go-round tactic, Houston would throw leg kicks so weak, it looked almost as if he was trying to swat a mosquito off Kimbo's leg.
And Houston's throwing those kicks, they just don't have a lot of pep on them.
Kimbo didn't do much to counter Houston's lackadaisical game plan of circling around his opponent like a human merry-go-round, and did nothing for the majority of the fight.
Exact same way over and over and over again.
The only exciting points in the fight came in the 2nd round, when Kimbo finally decided to fight and landed a few punches and an impressive slam.
Taking his back.
But by the end of the fight, both fighters were completely gassed.
Both guys are so tired, Mike. Look how slow these punches are coming. Wow.
The fight marked the first win of Kimbo's UFC career. But he only had one more UFC fight afterwards, a TKO loss to Matt Mitrione. After that, he was given his UFC walking papers and was never Dana White's friend.
We weren't friends, we're not friends, and no, he shouldn't have been expecting a call from me.
Tank Abbott versus Oleg Takturov. Any Tank Abbott fight has the potential to be one of the most exciting fights or one of the most boring, solely depending on the length of the fight.
Tank starts off with a bang, but always seems to run out of gas.
At UFC 6, David Tank Abbott took on the Russian Bear. Not that kind of bear. A Russian fighter named Oleg Takturov, a martial arts title holder.
A multiple world martial arts title holder from all over the world.
As per usual with any Tank Abbott fight, Tank completely gassed himself out in the first 30 seconds using his patented, "if I don't knock the guy out in the first 30 seconds, I lose" discipline of fighting.
And exhaustion is clearly set in.
Well, Tank didn't knock the guy out in the first 30 seconds, so he lost. But it only took 17 minutes of hugging, takedowns, laying on his opponent, and sitting on Oleg's face before he was finally submitted via choke.
This could do it again. That's it. Takturov wins it.
Tank tried his best to KO his opponent early in the fight, but was unsuccessful in finishing Oleg off, and quickly succumbed to fatigue and spent most of the 17-minute fight laying on top of his opponent with his head buried in Oleg's chest, soaking up all that sweaty Russian juiciness. Tank tried every trick in the book, including fish hooking, which is when you stick your fingers in your opponent's mouth. But sticking anything in a bear's mouth can have varying results.
Hello.
Both fighters were exhausted by the end of the bout, with Oleg requiring oxygen and Tank immediately leaving the octagon to head back to his training grounds, aka the nearest bar.
Well, Tank is said about other losses. I go back to the hotel and have a drink.
And a few honorable mentions. Demian Maia also makes this list for his lackluster fights against Tyron Woodley.
The chant of boring. The last thing a fighter ever wants to hear.
Jorge Masvidal, and pretty much all his fights that go to the judge's decision, and is often described as the human backpack.
But he's still wearing the backpack.
To describe it nicely, Woodley vs. Wonderboy 2 was a tactical fight.
This was a very tactical fight.
A very tactical fight.
It was a tactical battle just like the first one.
An extremely tactical fight.
A lot of people are booing. I loved how tactical it was.
Who are we kidding? It was just boring.
I mean, not a lot has been happening.
Just not doing much. Crowd getting a little bit testy here.
I'd rather watch Season 8 of Game of Thrones again than see Arlovsky vs. Sylvia 3 for a second time.
Why do you think I came all this way?
Actually, never mind. I'll watch the fight again. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and check out the Patreon link in the description if you want to help support the channel.